Welcome back, folks. Online communities have been dynamic hubs of engagement and collaboration, but how can they also become powerful revenue generators? Unlocking the value of these vibrant spaces involves, more than just attracting members. It requires innovative strategies to monetize effectively while enhancing the user experiences. In this session, our panelists will delve into creative and practical approaches to turning community engagement into sustainable revenue streams. Joining us to moderate this panel, we have Varun Luthra, Country Manager for the ANZ region and Grazitti Interactive. With over 16 plus years of experience in building thriving communities, Varun is passionate about helping brands connect with their customers and achieve their business goals. At Grazitti, he leads a team focused on managing Fortune 100 accounts, driving customer success, and even fueling sales growth. So here's Varun with our next panel discussion, Unlocking Value, Innovative Strategies for Monetizing Online Communities. Hello, Varun. Welcome to this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Devanshi. Hello, everyone. It is, so exciting to be here today. And I'd like to start by saying that, the online communities are more than just the spaces for engagement, as they hold immense untapped potential for generating revenue. In this discussion, we'll explore innovative strategies to unlock value and transform community interactions into sustainable monetization opportunities, driving both engagement and the growth. Now, to discuss the practical strategies for monetizing the communities today, I've got the most knowledgeable speaker in the industry, Pablo Gonzalez. He's the CEO and co-founder of Be the Stage. Pablo is passionate about human connection and has an impressive track record in driving growth for nonprofits and startups alike. He's also been recognized as a top 20 under 40 in his hometown and has been featured in notable publications, including Mark Sheffer's book, Belonging to the Brand. Hello, Pablo. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Varun. Most knowledgeable in the space, huh? That's some pretty big shoes to fill. I'm in. Let's go.
Absolutely. And also, I'd like to welcome Mayank Bansal with over 15 years of experience in the industry, including Salesforce and communities, AI, as well as the process automation. Welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you both on board. So let's dive into this amazing session today. So I'll actually start with the first question. I'll put it to both of you and we'll go from there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of the emerging monetization models that the online communities can adapt beyond the traditional advertising and the subscription fee.
Yeah, Varun. Am I going first? Is Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Pablo, go ahead.
Man, I'm so glad we're talking about this, right? Because I think that us as community as people that love community, right? I've felt so many times at community events or whatever that monetization can be a bad word. But I think we all learned very recently that if we're not part of the revenue equation, our jobs are at risk, right? The community is at risk. The impact we can make is at risk. And yet, we have this challenge where if we are not monetizing this thing in a genuine way, in like an additive value way, then we are also at the risk of the community not working at all, and our jobs are at risk, and the community is at risk, and everything else, right? So this idea of monetizing it in innovative ways is near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. There's two ways that I like to think about this. When you are starting the community, how do you get to monetization? And when you have a community, what are innovative ways to monetize it? The first one, I'll start with the cold start problem. It is pretty clear to me that the cohort-based class as a way to found a community is the best way that I have found. It's something that we started experimenting with about 3 years ago. I'm now starting to see it really, really take hold. I just finished this Category Design Academy hosted on a Mighty Network. And the way that you can unite people around something that we all care about to get them through an experience together that is bonding, right? That then gets an outcome on the other side of it, which creates these evangelists that now become the nucleus of what your community is going to stand for, is for me the best way to like go from 0 to 1. And the key there is being very, very selective about who you bring in to be the first people. And I guess I can pause right there from like 0 to 1, and then we can talk about like once they're already connected. Mayak, do you have a take on just kind of like starting community and monetization?
Right. Thank you, Pablo, for this. Again, Varun, great question. So from a starting point of view, I think content is the key. My content, when I'm putting whatever content on the community, it should be binding enough. It should be relevant enough to my user base and what's the objective of my community. And once I know what sort of content I want to put out, what's my target audience, and once those kind of people start coming in, I can evolve my content around the people that have now started to engage with the community. And rather than monetizing from get-go, I think the focus should be on binding the content with the user base so that it becomes more relevant to them, and then they start contributing into it.
Yeah, I get that 100%, right? Like you know where I think I have where things fall short, and just to give you more context, right? Like I've worked with companies that have a big user base, and then I've also worked with companies that are launching, right? So they don't have like an audience, and they don't have that user base. How do you deal with? I think it's really important to get like speed to win on community format. How do you deal with like speed to win when it comes to that idea of just like starting with content to identify to get there? Do you have any kind of tips on that?
Okay, so so I think we have to maintain a balance and not right away like jump on the 100 stage and kind of take. So it has to be a balance between small steps as well as interactive features to come into place, so that the community does become engaging. So like for example, LinkedIn. So they started off with features like job posting and connecting social, like professional people together with similar backgrounds together. And now they've started including features like AI and stuff like that into it. So because now they have their community well built, and now there are people who have their followers, who have their connections, and it's now one of the biggest social media platforms or communities which is now being monetized heavily.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. I like your approach to like promoting people as a way to like find that piece of like making content about the people winning and like being seen as the place where you get recognized, right? Like I think we all know that community is a status game,
right?
And systematizing that is absolutely key. I find that in the cohort-based class model, right? What I like about it is the idea of, if you got to sell this to an executive of like, how is this going to pay for itself? You can get some funding right in the door of saying, well, we're going to either charge for a class or not charge for a class, right? But like, it is also a way to draw in partners, right? Like you can enlist partners that you can say, hey, you're going to be part of our cohort class. So maybe they sponsor being part of it. They get to teach. It also natively creates a whole bunch of content because if you like design it. And the number one thing that I really, really like about is that it forces you to think about that transformation that you're going to create for people, right? Like if you don't have like a transformation and a value prop for the community, I feel like that's where most things go false. So it's almost like a dummy proof way of doing it that also can give the pat on the back to the executive that needs to put this on their P&L of just like, oh, and by the way, this isn't like a net zero game. Like we're making a little bit of money on this. Is why I like it.
And additionally, if the if it's my community and if my employees get also learn from the same community, I think that's an added bonus. So it brings in money as well as education. And if my employees also get trained on it and how to talk to my end user, I think that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and to that point, kind of like once you have people there, for me, the number one way that's like you monetize community is to leverage the community as social validation, right? Like we've had so many, right? Like this is the most famous community that I built, this like JWB real estate investor community.
Yep.
And what we've really been able to do is capitalize on the fact that we have like a weekly internet talk show that's our podcast. Because we have a community and we know about 100 people show up, we know 40 to 60 of them are super fans of the thing that like come to all of it, right? So that means that the moment that, person number 61 to 100 that shows up, that may be anywhere in the buyer funnel, when they show up, they're already ingrained in this idea that there's people that know you, like you, trust you.
Yep.
And I don't think people think enough about that, right? Like they kind of have this like silo of like, oh, here's the community and we've got to serve the community. But how you get people that love you to interact with people that are deciding whether or not they want to do business with you, to me is the number one question that I would ask if I have already a group of that in one place. And orchestrating those kinds of like interactions to me is the most genuine, the most sustainable way to monetize community. And it's become such that, like this company that I'm here with is they sell rental properties, $250,000 properties. And 40% of the people that buy one of these homes do so without ever, like everybody most people that buy it, like never have visited the home, right? Like it's just an investment, like buying a stock. But they are buying these $250,000 homes. 40% of them do it within 30 days of having come to one of our community events. Right? Because, they get there and it's like giant decision. But once you see 30 people telling you it's a good idea, that stuff works, right? And it's super easy to attribute as well, because if within 30 days, 40% of people do this, now it's like this like rock solid argument of like, you can't mess with this, right?
Right. And from monetizing point of view also, the money does not always have to come from the outside. Sometimes the effort saved in for example, case deflection or lead deflection is also turns into a revenue stream in itself. So if my 30% effort of if my 30% of cases are deflected as a service community, my agents that are spending effort in solving those cases or spam cases, it is a revenue stream in itself as well.
Absolutely. And the reduced sales cycle, like Pablo mentioned, I mean, they are already convinced, right? So easy sales for the sellers as well. Thank you. Great insights there, both of you. So let's move on to the next one and talk about how the communities can, effectively balance, the efforts while still maintaining the trust and the engagement. Because, when we talk about, let's say, like for example, Twitter started the subscription fee when I think sometime around last year. So there was a lot of talk about it. So how do we still maintain the trust and the genuine engagement in the community?
Mayank, you want to go first on this one?
Sure, I'll take this one. So what in terms of balancing the trust and the engagement, I think it's very crucial. I think the main point is communication and transparency in that communication. That we're charging here, but we're not charging someplace else. And our gamification is so beautifully designed that it informs the customer and it makes them part of the process, the monetization process, and they don't feel forced into it. They're not forced, like without paying I cannot do anything on this community. So if they feel part of the community, as well as they see that it is being charged upfront, I think that's the main point, like keeping it very transparent and communicating it upfront.
Yeah. You're, I'm hearing from you the kind of like privacy side of it and the trust side of it. I think even I think of it much more, I'm less technical, right? So I think of it much more as like, how do you maintain the promise to people that you're not just like selling them down the river? For me, where I get to control it is, are you being invited to things that benefit you? right? Once that to me is like the major thing. Like once if you lose that, you lose everything, right? Like the moment that you look at the trade show world right now, and it's turned into this like pitch fest, right? Like people sponsor events in order to get up there and just like they invite people to an event, and it's almost like inviting a whole bunch of like wildebeest down to the river where the crocodiles and the lions can eat at them, right? You got to really avoid that piece, right? Like how you align interests with your community members and continue to fulfill the promise of this space here is designed for you. You know, it's designed based on a win-win scenario that we can create together. It's not designed on my product. It's designed on the thing that we agree on, that we see the world, you know, like the lens that we see the world through and the outcomes that we want to achieve. For me, that the spine of that is what I call a point of view, right? Like if you can have a real narrative that talks about like how the world is, what the problems that we see in it that we want to fix, and like a vision of a new world and like what that looks like, if we can agree on that and make that the core of the conversation, and for every event that we do, for every like guest that we invite, for people that we bring in, like everybody understands that we agree that, and that's what we're here to talk about. The product itself is like a tool in the tool belt of like fixing this like problem that we want to fix, as opposed to like the topic of conversation. And I think that, you know, you keep that going on top of like, don't violate data trust and all that stuff. Right. But you got to keep that going in order to like, you know, keep it fun and keep people wanting to come back. They want to be a part of something.
And exactly. And in terms of like making a community more involving, like including more gamification items into it, providing them rankings and stuff like that, so that they feel that competition and they feel part of achieving something in process of it.
Yep.
And reaching an end goal, but yet not the end destination.
Yeah, agreed, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination, as we can all agree. So, of course, great insights once again. So, both of you, you know, now we've spoken about and discussed about, you know, the trust, the social validation as well. Pablo mentioned about it. So, how does the community owners then, you know, look at the data side of things, right? You know, analyzing the engagements in the recent times after the demonetization has been enabled in various ways. How can we then use those strategies to continue driving the revenue growth, right? Because, you know, we'll have to make sure that after we see the initial reaction of how that has impacted in a positive or a negative way, how can we then improve on this monetization's next steps?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go first here because I think I'll have like probably a simpler answer because I'm not the technical guy. Man, I have found that what's worked for me personally has been to attach yourself to the smallest target possible, right? Like, what is the one metric that you are trying to move that you can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that also is important enough to the business owner or the owner of the P&L or the, you know, like the unit economics manager, where as long as that's happening, you can do whatever you want, right? For us, you know, here at JWB, it's really been that idea of, hey, if we could, you know, we started with like something like 20% of properties, you know, like of properties coming from people that were at one of these shows within 30 days. Actually, we started with how, you know, setting a baseline for, they used to have like all their sales were like affiliate sales. They were coming from somebody else that educated them. And once they showed up in their funnel, that worked really well. But people that came to their website never, you know, closed at a rate below 1%, right? So we started tracking that. And within a year, that crushed, right? Like we increased the amount of sales that closed coming in from the website by 40 million. And then, you know, that became kind of like a standard. I was like, all right, well, that's already proven. So like, well, how can we continue to improve? We continue to like aim smaller and smaller, right? So we got to this number of sales coming from people from an event from like a certain amount of days. So what I would tell folks is to, in your community, you need programming, you need engagement points, you need these kinds of things. Measure a statistic that really matters, where it's like whatever your sales cycle is, like measure the performance of like that amount of days from touch point that you can like peg to, and the percentage of growth within that thing. And then also look at the folks in your community and outside of your community, and look at all the sales metrics. People inside of your community should have higher pipeline velocity. They close faster. They should have higher average contract value. The first thing that they buy is the best thing, not just like the bottom package, because they already trust you already. And at the end of the day, it should be you're getting more revenue from less leads in the community channel than everything else, and that should always be going up.
Exactly. And even like a very small metrics like SEO can also drive the monetization effort and making the community rank higher in the Google ratings, and making it more engaging, and so that people land up very easily onto the community. They don't have to search a lot of places to reach your community. And coming back to the content has to be relevant to the problem that you're trying to solve, so that you are more searchable and you're more likable in terms of people coming to that platform. And like, where do they drop off? How many? If my gamification is involved heavily, are they happy with the gamification with simple maybe surveys, or maybe a one-click survey or a one-click feedback? Nowadays, if you might have noticed, Pablo, that even if you're playing a small game in Android or iPhone, after playing like 5-10 minutes, they show up a quick rating pop-up wherein they say, if you like our game, just rank us on the Play Store. So I think a small quick feedback or survey should work fine in terms of driving people to the right page or the right destination of your community.
Yeah, excellent. And what I really have enjoyed in this session is Pablo's practical insights and Mayank, your technical aspect and take on all those things. So it's a great mix. Thank you for your insights. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's a great opportunity to be here. And it was lovely meeting you, Pablo, sorry. And we're interacting for the first time, but your insights really changed my view on how I now drive my community as well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Listen, it's really great to meet you too. This is my second or third time being part of this event with Grazitti, so just pumped to add value to the community world. And I would just leave the message of, hey, if you're in community, get as close to a revenue figure as possible, or your job is at risk, right? Like, my recommendation is study category design and like understand how to evangelize a problem and like monetize this thing, and you'll do well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pablo, Mayank, and Varun, for such meaningful takeaways. Before I let you go, we have a very interesting question from the audience that I would like to put to you. The question is, how do you measure the success of a monetization strategy through key metrics like conversion rates, engagement levels, and member satisfaction? Pablo, what do you think about this?
To keep it simple, right? Like here at JWB, we literally are I wish I could just share the screen, right? But like, we track on a Google sheet. So I'll start from zero. If you tie it to the events from the community, from specific engagement points, that simplifies the demarcation point, right? Like, when someone engages with someone, you get the signal, when they did it, right? And then it's a game of like time to outcome that you can succeed, that you can measure. I'm sure there's tools that have all sorts of other insights for community, but like, the most simple thing is have an engagement, whether it's an online event, whether it's an in-person event, whether it's a prompt for a survey or whatever, and measure, like the time to that outcome. And once you understand that, once you just peg it to like specific engagements from the community, not just community size and not what is always happening and like social listening or whatever, that gets too complicated, and the executive is just like, don't care. Like, what is the behavior change that you're doing? And if you can peg a correlation between activity to outcome and assign a value to that, that's it.
Perfect.
And I can just add on an example to this. So we developed a community for one of our clients, and since it was a new community, they wanted to find out whether the community is successful or not. So we kept it very simple, and we just looked at the user adoption data and how many users were actively using the community, for how much time they were logging in and when they were logging out. So like Pablo said, keep it very simple and keep the matrix also very simple, so that you're able to track it more effectively. And like he mentioned in the subsequent session as well, that start from the very beginning, keep it very simple and small.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayank, Pablo, and Varun for this discussion. I think our audience has had meaningful takeaways. So that's it. Let's quickly join another exhilarating fireside chat on agentic support intelligence, fueling self-service 3.0 with Gen AI. See you all in our next session.